All right. So, hi everyone. Welcome to the first episode of our story conversations with PhilDev. Our guest today is Eric Manlunas. He is the founder and managing partner of Wavemaker Partners, an early stage cross border venture capital firm in Los Angeles and Singapore with over $400 million assets under management and over 350 companies invested so far. So, prior to being a venture capitalist, Eric founded two technology startups, one in e commerce in 1996 and the other one in internet services in 1999. So both of which were successfully built and eventually sold to strategic buyers. So Eric is also a member of PhilDev's board of trustees, where obviously I'm part of. So Eric, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Always, always. So, Eric, a quick question, and I'm sure our viewers would want to know about this. If you're not an investor, what would you be doing right now?
Probably still be an entrepreneur.
Oh, okay.
Building another startup.
Mm-hmm. So, so far, what has been the most challenging part of being an investor? I'm sure it's a different path as an entrepreneur, right?
Different business altogether, different roles. Well, so it's not as easy as it looks. I realize there are a lot of people that want to get into early stage VC, and the biggest challenge really in being an investor is you have to learn how to multitask, and you have to learn how to do all different things well. The main three things that you have to be good at, or at least very decent at, are fundraising. You need to be good at picking the actual companies and picking the right investments. And number three is you have to be good at the portfolio maintenance aspect of it. What do I mean by that? So obviously on the fundraising side, that's the product that we have, right? We deploy capital, and most entrepreneurs come to us for our capital. And for you to be a good fundraiser, you have to have a good enough strategy where not only do you have to have a good strategy, but you have to have you have to be able to frame it in a way where you can inspire confidence. So your storytelling skills, you have to be able to frame it in the right narrative. Those are all important stuff for you to be able to get the capital. Fortunately for us, we've been doing it for 17 years, and we've had many repeat investors. So we must be doing something correct. The second piece that you have to be good at is to be able to pick and select the right founders. Mm-hmm. And there are many things that in itself is a whole different question. But the main things that you have to be good at, or the main things that you have to have as an investor is number one, you have to have a vivid imagination, because you have to be able to imagine all these things. Number two, you have to be a pathological optimist. Otherwise, you're gonna hate everything that you see. And number three, you have to be intellectually curious, because there's a lot of things out there, and you have to be constantly asking why this, why that, why not, all kinds of things. Number four, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because startups in general are difficult to build, and there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. So you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable for you to be a good investor. And last but not the least, in terms of being on some of the elements of being able to pick the right companies, is you have to have a fair amount of disdain or dislike for conventional wisdom. Otherwise, you're never going to pick the disruptive ones. It's really the troublemakers that are the misfits. The troublemakers are the ones that will deliver you the best results from a founder perspective. And of course, last but not the least, in terms of the third element that you have to be good at to be an investor, or the challenges of being an investor, is you have to have a certain amount of rapport with the founders, because after you've found them and after you've invested in them, you have to maintain that portfolio company. So you have to have the right level of empathy to be able to work with them properly. And so you have to have a fair amount of understanding in terms of the operational chops that they have to go through and the operational requirements that they have to go through to build it properly. So being a former entrepreneur myself, that part has helped me in terms of having the right level of empathy, right level of understanding. So, going back to your question, what are the challenges? So you have to be, it's a combination of being able to have a sophisticated way of allocating capital, and having the right amount of understanding in terms of how to build companies from ground up.
All right. So, Eric, I'm sure with this current COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of the things that you've said still applies, or also you're strategizing, right? Speaking of being a pathological optimist, in your view, how will the COVID-19 affect the business landscape in Southeast Asia, especially in the Philippines?
Well, I think it's going to affect it in a lot of negative ways, but there's going to be a lot of positives that come out of it. The knee-jerk reaction will be there because of the uncertainty, and certainly I don't think anybody's old. None of us are old enough to remember the last Spanish pandemic, right? So nobody really knows how to react to this. So because of the uncertainty, there's going to be a lot of negative ramifications in the landscape. So investments will slow down for sure, because investors don't like to invest when there's a lot of uncertainty. So people will wait and see. The wait and see attitude is the one that's going to depress the economy, because there's not going to be enough movement, and there's not going to be enough velocity of capital changing hands. Number two, the level of the type of normal that we're going to see after this is all said and done, or the other side of this, is still going to it's going to be, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a completely different type of normal. There are certain industries that are going to take forever to get back, or much slower to get back. Hospitality and travel are two of the ones that I can think of right now that will probably take a little bit longer for them to recover, because the behaviors have changed. People won't travel as much. People won't entertain themselves as much. And so that's definitely going to impact the landscape. The good news is, I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs are chomping at the bits in terms of coming up with new disruptive solutions or new products in general that would address the new normal. And but in the short term, I think there's going to be a fair amount of disruption and negative ramifications from this.
So you mentioned about the wait and see part. In your best opinion, how long would be how long is this wait and see part? Would it take 6 months, a year, to become, or to go back to business as usual? Same thing before the COVID-19 happens.
Nobody knows is the answer. I don't have any batteries in my crystal ball to figure that out. But what I can tell you is everybody's waiting for the medical breakthrough. Meaning the medical breakthrough will be in the form of a vaccine or a form of therapeutic. The minute you can control this is when I think the old normal might start getting back, or it might start rearing its old head. But I don't know. That sounds to me that's going to be sort of a 12 to 18 months. So we're prepared. We're preparing ourselves, and we've advised our companies to prepare for an 18-month disruption.
Interesting you mentioned 12 to 18 months, because that's also about the same time that the Asian Development Bank also provided as part of their analysis as to how businesses, especially SMEs, can bounce back. So Eric, just to delve deeper, in this current situation, what do you think are the opportunities for startups that they can take advantage of? You kind of dovetailed on it earlier.
Well, first and foremost, I think they should take advantage of this global pause to really evaluate the value proposition they have with their customers. If there is a way to reimagine your product, if the old product's not working in this environment, perhaps there's ways to reimagine those types of products. And it's also helpful to reimagine yourself, how you operate, how you create your culture within your company. There's no doubt going to be plenty of opportunities coming out of this. It's a question of just having the conviction and having the guts to be able to pursue those types of opportunities. So for us, as an investment firm, what we're doing is we're asking ourselves lots of questions. How can we become better investors? How can we become better fiduciaries of other people's money? How can we be better partners to our entrepreneurs? And first and most importantly, of course, if you continue to serve your customers well, I think number one, they won't forget about you, and number two, I think a lot of those things will be remembered when we all come out of this on the other side.
So, with your limited resources, what are you guys specifically looking for in investing in companies at present, given the situation, given the COVID-19 situation?
It's the same stuff it's the same stuff we were looking for pre-COVID. We're constantly looking at automation solutions. We're constantly looking at data solutions, and we're looking at intelligence solutions. So automation is a big part of our thesis, a lot of enterprise tech and deep tech type of things. Right now, we're trying to pay attention to how the world will change post-COVID. And we think a lot of that will be in the logistics and supply chain side. So we're looking at companies in those sectors to try to figure out which companies have figured out what the post-COVID world may look like, and try to understand them better. In fact, we have one right now out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, that we might end up getting involved in the reverse logistics side of things, because one of the theses that we're pursuing is one of the products from this pandemic will be a lot of transactions will migrate online.
Eric, in one of the interviews that we were part of at the US Embassy Talks, you mentioned about the best ways. This is actually the best time for startups to kind of look at and evaluate for thinking of scaling up first. So how do you think startups can deliver better outcomes at this time during this pandemic?
Well, as I alluded to earlier, customer experience is tantamount to any business. And for as long as you continue to focus on the customer experience, I think you'll come out of this just fine. Startups serve different products, different services, that type of thing. But time to just reevaluate your existing model. If you need to pivot it during this crisis, if you need to change it around a little bit, this is the time to do it. The good thing about this crisis is, even if you fail in this crisis, nobody will penalize you. A lot of people are expected to fail in this crisis, right? So what I've told a lot of entrepreneurs is, look, if you're having a hard time and you think the old model is broken, now's the time to change it. Even if you don't succeed, nobody will remember it, because again, nobody will penalize you for failing during this whole COVID period. So this is the time to really take some risks in terms of changing your model. The way you come out of it is just, again, train yourself to think long term, train yourself to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and train yourself that there's going to be disappointments week in, week out. And if you're expecting the worst and hoping for the best, I think you'll be just fine.
Okay, thanks for that, Eric. So one last question for you. So what advice or tips can you give entrepreneurs when it comes to selling their ideas? So this is always a question that we always get. How do they become more attractive to the investors, as well as to their customers as well?
Well, investors love to hear the clarity of the vision and the scope of the ambition. Those are the two things that investors are constantly looking for when they're listening to entrepreneurs. So what I would say is hone your storytelling skills. Framing the story, framing your value proposition the right way will go a long ways in trying to convince investors to come in, or in trying to inspire customers to buy your product, right? But from an investor perspective, telling that story properly and as concisely and as clearly as you can is the best way to have them fall in love with you. Try to avoid industry jargon. Those mean nothing. I've heard entrepreneurs that can speak for 10 minutes, and at the end of the 10 minutes, they said nothing because all they did was just a bunch of jargon. So think about what you're building. Remind yourself why you're building it, and just tell that story in a clear, concise fashion. And I think you should be fine. So just describe to them what the vision is, and describe to them how big this can get. Again, clarity of the vision and the scope of the ambition are the two important things that have to come across quite clearly for you to be able to inspire confidence in investors to come into your business.
All right. Well, there you go, guys. To our viewers, I'm sure that's a good tip or advice for you, because sometimes they become too transactional and they forget to tell their story already. So I think that's a very good reminder from Eric. So, Eric, for the viewers of our story, I'm sure they'd like to know more about you. They know Wavemaker, they know your name, but I should like to know more about how you are as a person, not as an investor. Okay, so we're gonna do rapid fire questions. It's just
I'm very
some.
boring. Very
I am
boring as
sure.
a person.
Okay, let's make you unboring. Okay. All right. So, Eric, what's your favorite Filipino food?
Kare-kare.
Kare kare. Do you know how to cook?
I do not cook, but my wife cooks, and she can make a good one. But I don't. I don't cook, actually, unfortunately. I'm not proud of
Okay.
that, but I just don't cook.
Okay. Okay. Right. So, languages or dialects you can speak.
Just Tagalog. Unfortunately, I don't. My dad's from Cebu, but I don't speak Cebuano. I grew up in Manila, so just Tagalog.
So, what was the last book you read?
Um, Dark Towers, which is a book about Deutsche Bank and all their Wall Street dealings and all these illegal loans to Donald Trump.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So, best advice you received.
A long, long time ago, the best advice I received was do not internalize the fear of failure.
Interesting. And I think that goes out to all entrepreneurs, right? Same thing that even Dad is saying. Yeah.
Yep. We're all gonna fail, and we will all fail many times. So if you don't internalize it, it becomes part of it. You'll get comfortable with it. I'm not advocating to go, to shoot for failure. I just be comfortable with failure, and don't over internalize it, and you should be fine.
Right. So how about, what is the advice that you would give yourself or your younger self?
It's probably the same thing. I would basically advise my younger self a few things. Number one, try to do anything with a purpose. Anything that you end up doing, try to find a purpose behind it. I don't care what it is. Number two, find a point of view. Once you have a point of view, that basically acts as your guiding light, and you'll have a pretty good sense where you want to go. Another one is that do not internalize the fear of failure. And then two more probably is train yourself to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And last would be to train yourself to be a long-term thinker.
No, I like the last one the best. Yeah. So how about this? Three dead or alive people that you would have dinner with, or that you could have dinner with.
Dead one would be Steve Jobs. Alive one would be Warren Buffett. And the third one is, he's still alive, would be Charlie Munger, who's Warren Buffett's partner. Right.
So, okay, with all the things that you've accomplished or the things that you failed at, do you still dream, or what is your dream today?
Oh, you know what? My dream today is really just for my kids to be able to find their place in life.
Okay, well, so Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. If startups,
Of course.
If startups are interested to know more about Wavemakers or to contact you, where can they find you or get in touch with you?
Sure, Eric@wavemaker.vc is my email address. So we look at all the emails. We may not respond to all of them, but we look at all the emails.
All right. So thank you so much again, Eric. So to all our viewers out there, don't forget to leave us a like if you find today's episode interesting. You may also leave messages at the comment section for topics that we can discuss in the future. And lastly, of course, subscribe and follow us at PhilDev or at PhilDev if you want to learn more about innovation and entrepreneurship. So on Facebook, you can find us at PhilDev Foundation. That's facebook.com/Philippine Development. On Instagram and Twitter, that's PhilDev or at PhilDev_org. So watch out for our weekly episode. And again, thank you so much. Stay healthy and safe. All right. Thank you so much.